Hi everyone, welcome to the January 2024 edition of Archaeology News. I'm your host Rachel, and I invite you to join me on a journey through time as we explore the latest discoveries from the world of archaeology that are helping us piece together the puzzle of humanity's heritage. I have taken my years of experience studying and working in archaeology to spend hours carefully researching, filming, and editing each of my videos so that you can have well-sourced and interesting, accurate news about the past to show you how history is being rewritten all the time. This month's features include an interview with Dr. Stephen Rostain, who has discovered evidence of a 2,500-year-old garden city and road network in the Ecuadorian Amazon, a Mayan jade mask from Cochquitem, Guatemala, the discovery of a Roman dodecahedron on a community volunteer dig in England, and an update from field correspondent Will Murdoch about his time working on a project in Peru. Who does the jade mask depict? What are Roman dodecahedrons? Stay tuned to find out as I delve into the past, bringing you in-depth analyses and captivating stories from the archaeological world. Before we begin, don't forget to take a few seconds to subscribe or like to help support me in keeping the channel going and show the algorithm that people are interested in real archaeology. If you want to take it further and actively support Inside Archaeology in our efforts to push back against sensationalism and conspiracy theories, all super thanks or Ko-fi donations go back into improving and promoting the channel. I want to take a moment to also thank everyone who has given us a super thanks or a Ko-fi donation so far. It really means a lot to me. Okay, everyone, let's dig in. We have 5 stories today in our top discovery segment, which I will cover in chronological order, starting from those going farthest back in time and working my way up closer to modern day. We start with the publication of a new study on ancient chewing gum. This first discovery for January brings us to Sweden, where DNA analysis of 10,000-year-old chewing gum used by teenagers has revealed new insights into their diet and oral health. The wads of gum are made from pieces of birch bark pitch, a tar-like black resin, and they carry clearly visible teeth marks. They were found 30 years ago at the 9,700-year-old Huseby archaeological site. There are about 90 masticated pitch pieces from the site. Tooth imprints in 6 of them have been cast and osteologically analyzed. All the analyzed pieces had imprints suggesting individuals using them were younger than 20 years old. 3 were aged between 5 and 11, and there were 3 teenagers. A previous study in 2019 on the same material mapped the genetic profile of the individuals who had chewed it and revealed that the gum was used by both males and females. This more recent study looked further and found that the teenagers' diet included deer, trout, and hazelnuts. Traces of apple, duck, and fox were also detected. In one piece chewed by a teenage girl, a number of bacteria were found, indicating a severe case of periodontitis, a really bad gum infection. These results indicate a case of poor oral health during the Scandinavian Mesolithic period. And they demonstrate that pitch pieces have the potential to provide information on material use, diet, and oral health. Our next story comes from the island of Evia in Greece, where archaeologists have discovered a 2,700-year-old temple containing an altar overflowing with offerings. Constructed of bricks, the temple is 30 meters long and dates to the 7th century BCE. It's located next to a temple of Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, wild animals, and nature, which itself was found in 2017. One of the peculiarities of this new temple is the significant number of structures that were found inside of it, including several hearths located in the temple's nave. Additionally, a horseshoe-shaped altar occupies a space that can be characterized as a pronaos. A thick layer of ash, rich in charred bones, testifies to the long use of these structures. The excavation of the archaic temple also found a rich trove of offerings, including Corinthian alabaster, Attic vases, locally made ritual vessels, as well as jewelry made of precious materials like gold, silver, coral, and amber. Amulets from the East and bronze and iron fittings. An ivory sculpture of an Egyptian person illustrating how people from different lands brought exotic gifts to offer at the temple was one particularly unusual discovery among the artifacts. Some of the pottery pieces found on the first level of the altar predate the temple and were fired during the late 8th century BCE, leading researchers to suspect that the altar may have once resided outside and was later moved indoors. The team are set to continue digging at the site in 2024. Now we go to Ecuador, where a network of garden cities has been found. Dating back to 500 BCE, it is the oldest and largest urban network in Amazonia. The discovery changes what we know about the history of the people living in the Amazon, and I'm very pleased to say that instead of having to hear me talk about it, I was able to speak to lead archaeologist on the project, Dr. Stephen Rostain, about this discovery. Let's dig into the interview. Can you tell us a little bit more about your discovery and what you have found?
Oh, I found cities in the rainforest. That is a kind of a dream for an archaeologist. A valley completely modified by autochthonous people 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. They built cities Earth, and the connection between these cities with roads, dug roads. It's a complete reappropriation of the landscape. This Upano Valley at the foothill of the Andes in Ecuador was not visited during centuries. The first colonists began to arrive in this valley at the beginning of the 20th century. And only from the middle of the century, some priests began to live in the valley, and the colonization from farmers from the mountains began in the 60s, 70s. So up to recently, it was a completely unknown city. One of the priests found a earth mound north of Macas, where he was living, and he said to another priest who was fond of archaeology and began to excavate. And he had not an academic training, so the results are basically no results. It's difficult to interpret what he wrote after that in a publication. And the valley was forgotten. The site was forgotten because basically in Ecuador, archaeologists, they prefer to work along the coast or in the Sierra, where they are sure to find monumental and big civilization. In fact, there is kind of an arrogance to consider a rainforest as a no civilization place. Archaeologists specialized in the Amazon. For now 30 years, we begin to find other expression, other kind of remain of features. We learned during this, let's say, 40 last years to recognize the past human imprint in the rainforest.
So considering that, like, as you said, people have focused on more like the coastal and the other regions of Ecuador historically, what made you decide that you were going to investigate this particular area and start looking into the rainforest?
I'm from Brittany and I'm stubborn.
Okay.
So basically, I always listen advices, but because I'm wise, I never follow them. I began with the Maya, and I decided a certain time to look in the Amazon. I got a job in French Guiana, so I began to make excavations there, and I saw that basically in the Maya territory in Guatemala, you had like 3,000 archaeologists for one site. At this time, in the 80s, in the Amazon, you had more one archaeologist for 3,000 sites, so more potential for the archaeology, and very few archaeologists at this time in the Amazon. Now we are more, but so it was a challenge. We had this vision at this time of the rainforest full of semi-nomadic tribes looking for food, and this depreciative, this arrogant opinion is wrong. We have really to change our mind. Another problem in the archaeology of the New World is that archaeologists they think that there is no civilization in the Amazon, and that the past culture are exactly the same as the modern culture. So they are living in small villages. They cannot accept a big change 500 years ago with the arrival of the European and the disease. We accept it if you go to Guatemala, you speak today with a Maya farmer, you know that he's basically different from the Maya, pre-Columbian Maya, because of this dramatic event. Why we don't apply this idea to the forest? The modern people are different from the pre-Columbian Amazonian people. Still, we have a lot of work to change the mind of the people.
In regards to this site, how did you go about finding it initially and then excavating it?
Initially, it was, as I said, a priest who visited and made some excavation. I did arrive in '96 in Ecuador to set up an archaeological project with an Ecuadorian colleague. He stopped after 2 years, but I continued during 7 years to dig, to excavate through various sites. I saw the dug roads, but I didn't know exactly how they were connecting different sites. I found a lot of materials, features, the map of houses on the platform, a lot of radiocarbon, a lot of plants. I had a lot of results, fantastic results, but I didn't have the complete overview, the image of the valley. In 2021, I got the LiDAR of the complete valley, so I could, with a colleague, Antoine Horizon, I could interpret this landscape with all these cities made in checkboard, and the empty space are occupied by drainage fields, and these roads that are going straight to other sites. It's all the valley is modified by the inhabitants. It's really surprising, impacting, and you see that basically through the LiDAR.
So was it when you did the LiDAR that you realized the significance of what you found and that these were all actually interconnected like cities, as you were saying?
I first I work a lot on the fieldwork, because fieldwork is important. The LiDAR alone is nothing. And this imagery was available only in 2021, so I got it, and during 2 years we did study it with Antoine, and up to got good results that were published in Science.
You've mentioned doing the field work and how that's really important, and radiocarbon dating as well. Is that how you've determined how this site is older than any other site that's similar to it or in the Amazon?
I did organize stratigraphical trenches, but also large-scale excavation, opening a big pit to see all the distribution of the features and the remains.
One of the things that this discovery has made headlines across the world, I noticed it on the BBC website, which I think is really great. But I also saw on Twitter and some other places that it's attracted the attention of pseudo archaeologists. So people like Graham Hancock, or like, people who tend to believe in these theories about ancient advanced civilizations that happened 10,000 years ago, etc. And they're now kind of jumping on saying that your discovery is proof that their claims are correct. Do you have a response to that, or what would you say to that about that?
I think with such an impressive discovery, the best attitude for a scientist is to keep a cold mind and just to go for using the data to interpret, and not to go to I love poetry, but not in my job. For instance, a lot of person asked to me how much they were in the valley. To now, I cannot answer to. I know that it's probably various thousands, but I have no idea how much. And we are calculating now exactly surfaces, and to give some statistical answer. obviously, such discovery is like a light with the butterfly trying to take something. I just don't care of this. Everybody can think what he want.
What next? The next steps in the discovery? Are you going to go back and excavate more publications, etc.?
As you probably know, the situation in Ecuador is kind of difficult, dangerous. So I fear that we will not have excavation for a long time. But I have a lot of data from my previous excavation, and still the LiDAR that I have has some secret to reveal, for instance, to define the demography and other aspects that still we are working on, and to publish this result. So I have to work for a long time still on what all kind of data that I did collect. So this will be immediately what we will do, and after that, let's see what happens. Perhaps new field work or a new team. I just don't know.
How can people who are watching this either support or follow what you're doing with this project?
Just you can read the papers that I'm publishing. I think that more as a academics, we have to give some result to the public and not the contrary. So
that's everything for today. Thank you so much again for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you and speaking to you.
Thank you. See you.
Wow, what a history rewriting / changing discovery. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Our next discovery brings us to the ruined Maya city of Cochquitam in northeastern Guatemala, where archaeologists excavating a looted pyramid tomb have discovered an interlocking jade mask believed to have belonged to a previously unknown Maya king. The site is in an area considered to be the heartland of the Maya classical period, which lasted from 200 to 900 CE. The site was first reported in 1909, and ongoing work has revealed 3 major monumental structure groups linked by a long central causeway. In 2019, archaeologists began surveying and excavating the site. Following a LiDAR survey in 2021, they discovered that grave robbers had excavated a tunnel into the Royal Pyramid's core. Further inspection revealed that the intruders had overlooked a specific area within the pyramid's inner burial chamber. The team decided to investigate that spot further, and after digging down more than 7 meters into the pyramid, they found a trove of archaeological material: a human skull, human bones, some of which were carved with hieroglyphs, a coffin-shaped stone box, ceramics, and funerary offerings including a pot, oyster shells, and multiple jade pieces that fit together to create a jade mask, representing the Maya storm god, whose name directly translates as First Sorcerer Rain God. Jade masks were generally used by the Maya to symbolize deities or ancestors and to reflect the affluence and influence of the entombed individual. The name of the buried individual, Itzem Kokaj Bahlam, is spelled out in carvings and hieroglyphs on some of the bone fragments. The researchers think that he is a Maya king who ruled Cochquitam around 350 CE as part of a network of Maya royalty in the sphere of influence of Tikal and Teotihuacan. A carving on one of the bones shows the ruler clutching the head of the Maya deity represented by the assembled jade mask. The research team intend to pursue everything from ancient DNA studies of the bones to the possibility of finding more treasures buried within these abandoned pyramids. If you want to know more about this discovery, it has been featured in National Geographic magazine. I've linked to the article in the video description. Our next discovery was made by amateur archaeologists in England who found a Roman dodecahedron during a community dig in a farmer's field. The project was organized and staffed by a local heritage group and run in partnership with a local professional archaeology company. The dodecahedron was found on the second to last day of the 2-week dig this summer, and it was formally announced as a discovery in January. This type of object has puzzled experts for centuries. More than 100 dodecahedrons have been found throughout northwestern Europe over the past 200 years. They date from between the 1st and the 3rd century CE and have only been found in former northern territories of the Roman Empire. Each dodecahedron is a 12-sided hollow shell of metal. This one in particular is made of copper alloy, with differently sized holes in each face. These holes are often surrounded by concentric rings imprinted in the metal, and there is a stud at each corner. But they bear no writing of any kind, and no description of them has ever been found in Roman literature. As a result, their purpose has been hotly debated. It's been proposed that they were toys, dice, the heads of maces, sling stones, or range-finding devices for Roman artillery. Additional theories range from there being devices for calculating dates from stars to serving as knitting patterns for gloves. This discovery is one of the few times that a dodecahedron has been found in its archaeological context. The object is complete, whereas many others are badly damaged or fragmented. It's also quite large for an object of this type. They can be as small as a golf ball. The remarkable find is now on display in Newark Museum. Its discovery was featured on the TV show Digging for Britain. Although the excavation closed for the season on the day following the discovery, the community group hopes to get more funding and return to the site this upcoming summer. There is a link to their website in the description if you'd like to contribute or follow their efforts. That's it for our top discoveries. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this segment, don't forget to like the video. Before we get to current news, we're going to go to our field correspondent, Will Murdoch, who is on site in Peru doing fieldwork. Take it away, Will.
Hey everybody, my name is William Murdoch. I'm a cultural resources management archaeologist from the northeastern United States, and I'm currently in Cusco, Peru. You might recognize me from one of Rachel's previous videos from the Ask an Archaeologist series. I'm here to discuss some of the fieldwork that I've been lucky enough to be a part of in the last couple of weeks. I'm currently on week 5 in the beautiful country of Peru, currently in Cusco. For the first 3 weeks or so, I was in Ancash, which is the northern highlands. I was based out of the relatively large city of Juarez. I was there with archaeologist Victor Ponte and a couple of other archaeologists to document high-altitude rock art sites, both Recuay and Chavin era. And the first of the sites that we were working on documenting was near Laguna Legiacocha, which is about 15,000 feet above sea level. And it was a Recuay era site, which if you're not familiar with Peruvian cultures and pre-Incan societies, Recuay is, I believe, from 200 BC all the way to 600 AD, typically associated with the Moche culture. Very interesting stuff. It is essentially when herding was a pretty big part of life, and that is exactly what we were documenting. We were documenting rock art made by herders in these high-altitude rock shelters. Incredible. It was really neat to study the association between herders and the animals that they were protecting. As you can probably guess, a lot of the rock art, which I'll include a couple of photos, is camelid related, or it's about camelids. My favorite of which was a mother camelid nursing her baby. After we finished up near Laguna Legiacocha, we returned to Juarez for a couple of days to rest and recover, because keep in mind this is all camping. We're all backpacking out to these very remote sites at high altitudes. So we were all pretty exhausted after the first couple of days. And after that, our next stop was Laguna Tururu, which is a little south of Juarez. And Laguna Tururu is interesting because there are a number of rock art sites, one of which is actually in what is now a pretty large lake. We weren't able to document that one due to the water levels. Keep in mind this is the rainy season in Peru, as well as the El Nino season. So there was a fair amount of water coming down from the sky. One of the sites that we were able to document at Laguna Tururu was Chavin era, which is pretty cool. If you're not familiar with Chavin, it is a very, very old culture. It is particularly interesting because a lot of the rock art that was being produced at this rock shelter was anthropomorphic, human-related, kind of looks like humans. In addition to this anthropomorphic art, we also found a whole bunch of lithic scatters, a lot of ceramics. Very interesting site. It was kind of refreshing to see lithics because that's one thing that I'm more familiar with. This whole trip's been an incredible opportunity to learn more about Peruvian culture. I hope this has been interesting and informative. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thanks so much for that, Will. Great to hear about what you've been up to. Hopefully, we can have more field updates like this in future. Don't forget to follow him and his adventures on Instagram. His handle is @whereiswilliamnow. Now we're going to move on to current news and events. Our first story brings us to Thessaloniki in Greece, where the Palace of Aigai, or also known as Vergina, has reopened after a 16-year restoration. Built more than 2,300 years ago by Philip II, the palace is famously known as the place where Alexander the Great was officially proclaimed and crowned. At the time, it was the largest building in classical Greece, covering an area of 15,000 square meters. It was later destroyed by the Romans and rediscovered via excavation work in the 19th century. Its renovation cost more than 20 million euros and was done partially with help from funds and grants from the EU. Next, in Scotland, conservators have pieced together 100 fragments of a spectacular brass armguard that would have protected the sword arm of a high-ranking Roman soldier some 1,800 years ago. Found at Trimontonium, the guard was made in the 2nd century CE. It's one of only 3 known from the whole Roman Empire and the most intact. It took about 3 weeks to complete the reconstruction and sometimes seemed impossible because of the fragments' size. They were absolutely tiny. The piece is part of the National Museum Scotland's collection and will be lent to the British Museum's forthcoming exhibition on life in the Roman army.
Well, hey there, everyone. Sorry to interrupt. Editing Rachel here. As I was writing the script for this video, I kept thinking that it was missing something, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I went ahead and filmed the entire news video the other day, and then today it hit me that I didn't cover what was arguably the biggest current news event or headline in January, which was the resurfacing plan for Menkaura's pyramid at Giza. So let's put our imagination hats on and pretend that this next part of the video is part of the original video that was filmed, and to help with that, I'm also going to make my background the scene of our next story. On January 26th, Mustafa Waziri, head of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, posted a video on social media which showed workers setting blocks of granite at the base of the Pyramid of Menkaura in Giza. This video was accompanied by his announcement of a joint Egyptian and Japanese project which would study and then aim to restore the granite blocks that originally made up the first 16 courses/layers of the facing of this pyramid. The footage immediately sparked a storm of criticism amid fears that a wholesale reconstruction of the famed monument was planned, to the detriment of the conservation of its historic fabric. Due to this uproar, the Egyptian Minister of Tourism and Antiquities later issued a decree that he was forming a scientific committee of Egyptian and international scientists who specialize in Egyptology, archaeology, and engineering to review the proposed joint project. The committee is being headed by Dr. Zahi Hawass, and at the end of its investigation, it will submit a scientific report and decide on whether or not to move forward with the project. So there's no need to panic or start furiously typing on your keyboard in comment sections. The project is currently on pause, and hopefully in the near future we will see what the committee's decision is going to be, and we can then debate and give our opinions on what's going to happen when that comes out.
That's the end of current news and events. We'll close our program today talking about archaeology and entertainment and pop culture. In the middle of January, video game developer Machine Games did their first gameplay reveal for the upcoming Indiana Jones and the Great Circle game, which will be playable on Xbox Series X and PC and released in 2024. The game takes place between the time of Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Last Crusade movies, and it is an original adventure set in 1937. There aren't too many details available about the story yet, but according to the developer, a theft at Marshall College kicks the adventure off, with Indiana heading off in search of an artifact he once believed to be unimportant, before stumbling into the sort of action we're so used to seeing in the movies. The Great Circle alludes to archaeological sites around the world that apparently line up in a circle. I'm excited to be adding this onto my list of games to play/stream this year, and to also do a video review on the archaeology featured in the game as well. All right, everyone, time to pack up our finds and hang up our shovels for today. That's everything for the January 2024 edition of Archaeology News. Did you like this video? Is there anything important that I missed? Don't forget to comment, like the video, or subscribe to the channel before you leave. If you're feeling extra generous, you can give me a super thanks or go to my Ko-fi page and support me with a small donation. If you're looking for a more tangible return than my eternal gratitude, then have a look at my Redbubble shop and get a sticker, t-shirt, hat, or mug with your favorite archaeology slogan. Taking a few seconds to support me in any way you can helps to grow the channel and promotes quality heritage content that is well-sourced, researched, and presented by someone who is an expert in this subject. It shows the algorithm that people are interested in real archaeology, not pseudoscience, sensationalism, or conspiracy theories. Thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, and I hope to see you on my next adventure into the world of archaeology.